Welcome to The Whole Pineapple. I'm Ruby Boris.
And I'm Ann Judge. The Whole Pineapple is a podcast about wellness focused around fertility. And on these weekly mini episodes, we bring you bite-sized ideas for you to snack on.
Like breathing exercises, book reviews. Maybe we'll review some scientific research, or we'll share some wellness and fertility stories from our listeners.
So if you're looking for a tip or a trick related to your fertility and well-being, then you've come to the right place.
Let's dig in.
Well, welcome back to The Whole Pineapple on our snack edition. Hopefully you listened last week. We are welcoming back Suzi Mohn, who is a very experienced individual and family couples counselor. And we talked a lot on that episode about relationship strains and how you deal with infertility. And we are happy to have her come back today to share more tips specifically for partners. So what do you do when nothing you've been doing seems to be the right thing? So welcome back to the podcast, Suzi.
Welcome back. And you're going to help us fix everything.
Yes.
So after this podcast, our next episodes, we're just going to talk about how great we are because we fixed everything.
Just a tall order.
Right. No pressure.
Yeah. So you told the story in the main one, but tell it a little bit again here how this list was developed, because I love the fact that it came from actual people and actual feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, so this was back in Portland, and I think I'm trying to remember if I was in grad school. It was around that time, and I was leading support groups, couple support groups, people going through infertility. And at one point we just decided, let's split up by gender here a little bit and have some individual time with at that point in time, it was mostly men and women. And so it was funny when we got in with the men's group, I thought they were going to be so relieved to not have to talk about infertility that we'd spend the whole time talking about, like the Trailblazers or whatever. And instead, what happened was they were just this group of very despondent, overwhelmed, quite emotional, frustrated guys who were just like, we have no idea what to do. We are losing our minds, between the hormone injections and the emotions and the stress of other social events where, their sisters and sisters-in-laws were having babies or whatever. It was just too much. And they were just like, we don't even know what to do to help. And simultaneously in the women's group, their big topic was, my husband just has no idea what I'm going through and it's driving me crazy and it's putting a wedge between us. And I can't even, every time I get upset, he gets frustrated and leaves. And I don't know what to do, right? So it became really clear that we needed to generate some kind of a list. And it wasn't for the purpose of the list. It was for the purpose of them sorting out, like, what do you guys actually need to get through this? And that's how the list came about. It was kind of a combination of the women saying, this is really what we need in order to survive this process, and this is what we need from our partners, and the men talking about what they thought they could do and just having awareness built around that. So that's how the list came about.
This was also probably one of the first time that people had asked the men kind of how they really felt about this. I feel like a lot of times, when we have both partners come to our visits, which is great and we like it, but most of the time we're really only talking to one of them. Yeah. And we're not always asking, do you have other questions? Do you have something you want to talk about today? Yeah. I think there definitely is that gap, but I think also we're not asking. And so there's probably a lot more thoughts and feelings that we're just not even giving people the space to share.
Absolutely. There is absolutely a need to talk about it and express it. And it's very easier for us to fall into typical gender patterns of, women pursue for conversation and men withdraw. And that's not necessarily the case at all. And so, yeah, it was a really, really interesting and fun experience to do, and I'm hoping it helped them sort through it.
Ruby, do you have the list? Should we take turns reading some of it?
Oh, yes. Let me pull it up. Hold on. Let's see.
I mean, the first one is just so important. I feel like that was the big thing that I think I probably, and many people I know wish they had more of it. The first one just says, tell me you love me and you know I am sad. Yeah. Because I feel like that's part of it. You sometimes feel like you have to put on this brave face and you want your partner to acknowledge that they see what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next one is, tell me you know that it hurts me very much and that you know that every month we don't conceive is just harder and harder to cope and get my hopes back up. Okay, I might cry by the end of this list. So
Well, I feel like that one's so important because I often see sometimes on the partner side, they feel like they need to be the cheerleader. They need to be like, but next month will be our month. Don't worry about it. And you're right. But that feels like the worst thing in that moment. When you're in that sad place, you want that acknowledgement that they understand how hard it feels to get your hopes up and not have that outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suzi, do you want to read with us?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Don't hold back your feelings from me. You might think you're being strong, but I'm worried that I'm the only one who is sad. I need to know that you care about this too.
Yeah.
That's a huge piece, because it's not so much that misery loves company, which is where we could go with that, but it's more like, it's like sadness needs a partner, somebody to support me through this. And there is some comfort in knowing I'm not alone in this struggle. And if you tell me that you're also hurting and this is hard for you, then I feel like we're more of a team because we're doing this together. So that validation is, cannot be underestimated.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that goes into the next one. Tell me how you feel about our infertility. I feel like that's so true. Like often it's like we go straight to the treatment and the this and the that, but talking about how you actually feel too about the diagnosis and what it means to you. Like we said in the first episode, maybe your partner did have a whole lot of thoughts about parenting and what it'd be like to be told that, oh, you're going to be a dad, and the surprise, and like none of this is different than they imagine too. So
yeah, and you know, on the partner side of just not knowing what's happening in the other person's head too, and that you can spiral. Being somebody who does that pretty well, I'm very efficient at spiraling, of trying to catastrophize. We just did an episode on that. Yep. Okay, so don't tell me how I should feel. Accept my feelings for what they are, even if they're different from yours.
I think that's actually a huge piece, because I think the risk of sounding gender biased, oftentimes men just really want to fix the situation because they may be feeling hopeless or frustrated, and because maybe that's the way they think. And so when they try to do that, oftentimes what happens is their partner doesn't really feel hurt at all. And sometimes they're just so much better just to listen and let it be.
My husband would say it's because he's like more analytical, or it's like because he's an engineer. And like instantly, I'm just trying to be really logical. I want to list out the steps. Like I don't want to dwell on the feelings piece, but sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're the partner that it's not happening to. So I think across like men, women, like any gender that you identify with, if you're not the person that is directly getting the treatments every day, it can feel a little bit helpless. And so that's what your state is, to try to figure it out.
I tell couples a lot in lots of circumstances that if you're trying to reach some kind of resolution, often I'll say this to the man, you can go down that path of trying to fix it. And that would be, if you think about high school geometry and you have the right angle and the hypotenuse, if you want to go down the hypotenuse, if you want to go the quick way, like just listen and be present, because you actually will end up having a lot more time and a lot to go on and do whatever it is you want to do than if you spend the time trying to kind of force the issue. Your partner's needs won't get met in the same way. And in the end, there'll just be more conflict and you've spent more time.
Well, yeah, they talk about that even in medicine, that, if you actually do real, active communicate, you're listening, you're sitting there, you're really having that like true connection, like you spend less time with the patient, but they feel like you spent more time with them than if you just kind of like gave them a stock speech and weren't connected and walked out the door. So it's the same thing, like taking that time to really try and make yourself open and really, really hear what they're saying and not instantly be moving on to what you're going to say next to fix the problem is going to make everybody feel much more valued.
It's quality, not quantity. Share with me your vision of our child.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
Really
especially, you were talking to us before this about, we didn't even really touch on it much, but we've done it in prior episodes, those that have to make a decision to use gametes of someone else, like, because that a lot of times plays into that vision. Maybe if someone is like, well, I always pictured them having, my blue eyes and your red hair, and that's what they're going to look like. And so, yeah, I think that's really crucial to talk about what you envision, because sometimes a fertility journey involves changing that vision or thinking about what is the most important part of it. Is it getting to carry and give birth, or is it more on the parenting side? And you realize, oh, actually, there are all these other ways we could build our family.
Absolutely.
Go to resolve meetings or join a support group with me. I think we talked about this in the last episode, how important that is.
I like this next one, that tell me about conversations you've had with other people about our infertility. Because I feel like that's a big one. Sometimes you might feel like you talk to all your friends about this, and then you realize your partner's friends have no idea, or like it never comes up at his work, but it comes up at your work all the time. Or sometimes it is the opposite. Maybe people say really insensitive things to him too, and he just doesn't tell you because he doesn't want to add to your stress and pain. But, asking about it and feeling like like you said in the main episode, that this is something you're in together, can be a way of bringing you closer. And it's important to have those conversations.
Well, and you can also figure out like who are the safe people in your life that we can actually share this with, and who are the people that we either feel judged or evaluated, and it just adds to our burden. So we're not going to choose to share it with them. Okay.
I think you're up, Suzi.
I am, and I'm trying to find the question. Here, tell me how you feel when others' children are around. So that's
a good one.
Yeah,
too.
That's a big one because, people who want children tend to like children. I mean, sometimes people say, I just like my own and no one else's. But I mean, they tend to like children. And so there's this really mixed emotion, right? Of like, I like being around children and I love children, but also I don't have my own, right? So it becomes this very mixed bag of emotion. So sometimes just being able to talk about that gives both of them a chance to say, yeah, when I was around this kid, this is how I felt or whatever. And sometimes it's just a way to bond and connect.
Especially when so many family gatherings involve, children's type activities. Oh, we were going to so-and-so's baby shower, a birthday party. And so having that conversation in advance about how both you feel lets you decide if that's a thing that you're going to go to, or if maybe this is the year we bow out of that.
Totally. Spent an entire therapy session with couples figuring out excuses and reasons why they were not going to attend things that they didn't want to attend and giving them permission. Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully in society we can change the obligation for those things so people feel more safe to say, you know what, I'm just not going to go to this one today, without having to do a whole explanation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's me, right? Remind me that you love me and you're glad we're together no matter what happens. Yes. Sometimes as somebody that needs a lot of reassurance for things, that can be really helpful just to hear that, I think.
I think that plays into mine next too, because mine says, squeeze my hand or wink at me when we're in public. If you know something difficult's been thrown at me, let me know you're there. Because you're right, some people want to be reminded by words that they're loved. Other people want to be reminded by those gestures, by somebody giving you that physical connection, or those little secret signals, or even code words where I'm like, if I say this, that means we're leaving this party.
Yeah, exactly.
But all these ways of showing that you are in it together, and here's the ways that you're going to be having a plan to support each other through this together.
You're in sync, not the band.
Yeah. And also, recognizing that idea of we're together, no matter what happens, a lot of times there's a lot of insecurity around, well, what if we don't conceive? Does this mean we won't make it? Right. As a couple. And so just kind of remembering that the core relationship is the couple relationship, and that's solid.
That's really important, because I think that's something that a lot of our patients worry about, that they're going to lose the relationship if they don't get pregnant or, they don't conceive, and they don't express that to their partner. They really don't express it to anybody but like maybe me in the room, and it's a big fear, and it's really hard to think that and then be going through something hard like that, and you're not really sure what the other person's thinking.
Yeah. That transparency is critical at that point. Yeah.
And I think it's so unlikely that that's what their partner is thinking. I feel like everybody, if you put that out there and have the conversation, I mean, I think the most likely reaction is like, yeah, exactly. Of course not. And so I think people are afraid to even give voice to that worry. But most of the time, if you put it out there, you're going to get that reassurance that that's not what's going on. And if it is, well, then, gosh, you'd be good to know that, because that tells you a lot about that person's character, honestly. Right. And then maybe you need to reevaluate the relationship in a lot of other ways. So. Right,
because if they won't stick around for this, what else wouldn't they stick around for?
Right.
When I remarried, I was 40 and I had 2 children. I was a single mom, and I remarried. And when I met my husband, who's my husband now for 22 years, and he said I knew he wanted to have children. He said he did. And my first thought was just to say, you need to go find a 25-year-old fertile woman. Just forget it. Like, it's off, And he was like, no, I want you. And so, we went on forward from there with the next part of our journey. But, that was very comforting, knowing that we were signing on to that together, knowing that it might or might not work.
He said, I pick you.
I pick you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Help me find safe, supportive people we can talk with. Support me or stand up for me when people say stupid things. So.
Yeah.
Oh, people say such stupid things, don't they?
Oh my gosh. Just go take a vacation, you'll conceive. Or just adopt. That's oh my God. Just adopt and then you'll get pregnant. Yes, because that's how it works.
You should just go to Hawaii. It's like, if that was it,
Yeah.
What's funny to me too is how people still say stupid things even after you're pregnant. Sometimes you share this, like, see, we told you it just happened if you relaxed. It's like, there was a lot of stuff that went into that, but thank you.
Yeah, I relaxed right into my egg retrieval.
Yeah, right. That was a really expensive relaxation.
That's right. Yeah. It's anesthesia. It's great.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Come with me to medical appointments. Presents.
Yeah, that's been such a hard pandemic one, you know? Like, I feel like we for the longest time, we weren't allowing partners in. And so people got used to just coming by themselves. And we're slowly getting back to it, but I do miss it. I do feel like there's a lot of value. And I understand that sometimes people can feel like, well, I'm just sitting there, like all the testing is happening to her. Why? But you are sitting there, and you sitting there is really important for a lot of people. So
I actually can't imagine going through it without having my partner with me. Not just for the moral support, but also you never know as you're going through an IVF cycle what's going to happen when you go in for that ultrasound and that blood draw. And I had it happen a couple of times where there was a crisis, and I don't know what I would have done, right? If I'd been, it would have been hard to deal with it alone.
Read and become educated about infertility, pregnancy loss, medical treatment, third-party reproduction, adoption, etc. Help me advocate for myself and for us. I feel like that's really important because a lot of times, as we said in the first episode, many times, a female partner might be on this journey first. Like she might be doing some research and figuring out and choosing a doctor. And I think you naturally then settle into that role as the expert and you're just bringing your partner along for the ride. And it really shouldn't be that way. You should be approaching this as a couple, and it can feel really, really good to have him be like, hey, I was reading this the other day too. What do you think about XYZ? Because then you really do feel like it's not also your job to like explain everything to somebody else. Right. And that goes along with coming to those visits. It's so hard if you go to the visit alone and then you have to go home and rehash what happened at the visit to your partner. That's also putting you in this weird interpreter position between you and what the doctor said, and instead of it just being you're a couple, this is what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite things is in a room when the partner's there and we're wrapping up. I'm like, what else can I answer for you? And they look at each other, and then the partner's like, asked that one question that she wasn't, didn't want to say. I love that when they're like, oh, well, what about this? Because you could tell she was a little bit like, no, I don't know if I want to ask that.
She has been really gassy. Is that normal? I'm like, yes.
When can we have sex?
Yeah, when can we have sex? Exactly.
It's something that they had clearly talked about and has either been bothering them as a couple or bothering her. And it's so great to see the partner advocate for their partner.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowledge is power, right? So the more you both know as a couple, the more you have to bring to the table. Plan fun things for us to do together that aren't related to infertility.
Yes,
that's huge.
Forgotten.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It's so easy to focus so much on this process that you forget how to be a couple. You don't have any fun, and you don't make any big plans. And that happens all the time, right? Where couples are like, I can't plan a vacation. I can't apply for this promotion at work. We can't even go buy a car because we don't know what kind of, all of that stuff. And so we just put our lives on hold, and that's miserable, so it's really important to plan things and do things together that are just totally separate, that remind you still like each other.
For sure.
Yeah.
Take my fears and doubts seriously, but also remind me that we're a team and we'll work this out.
You get all the good, like, we're together no matter what ones through.
I know.
You're like, yes,
you are.
This. See, this is a good one for me. So let me talk when I need to and just listen.
Are you saying that to me, Anne?
No, you already do let me talk too much.
I'm here to listen, Anne.
That's a good one. And the last one is, the last one before the little paragraph at the end is, hold me when I cry. And when I don't cry too.
Yes.
Yeah. So physical comfort is huge, especially when sexuality has been so impacted by this whole brutal process. To be able to still have affection and touch is huge.
Definitely. You want to read the little paragraph?
Yes,
I love it too.
Yes,
It's
I think that's all you, Suzi.
It's all me. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how this one came about, but this is a story one of the guys told, and we cobbled it together from. So it's called Just Be There. One of our favorite stories is about a farmer who accidentally ran his John Deere into the ditch while plowing his fields. Try as he might, he failed to get the tractor out. Finally, he folded his arms, sighed, and just sat in the cab staring at the ground. His neighbor drove by, saw him sitting there, and got out to help. Realizing his inability to solve the problem, he did the next best thing. He climbed into the cab, folded his arms, sighed, and stared at the ground with his friend.
I love that so much.
I know.
Me too. It's such a good visual. And sometimes that's what you need. Like, you just want the person to sit there and just kind of sigh with you.
Just be there.
Know?
Yep. Yeah.
A well-placed "this sucks" really helps sometimes.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Sometimes there's just not much else to say besides "this sucks," So,
and that's shockingly validating, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even like the story, I mean, maybe you're eventually going to have to call someone and they'll come tow and they'll get the tractor. And like, that's the thing. That's a lot of steps. But like right now, just like stare at the ground with me.
Yeah.
I just need to sit here in my cab and look at the ground. Be in that moment
of us being like in this emotion, and we'll deal with the logistical steps in a little bit. So.
And it empowers you to then go on to the next steps and do the more complicated things. If you feel like you're not alone, it kind of energizes you and fills your emotional bank account a bit when you do that.
And he didn't hop in the cab and be like, why weren't you watching where the ditch was, this and that? Like, there's you
idiot.
In
what
the
were you
situation.
Thinking? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't you know?
Yeah. Did you try this? Yeah.
I know. If you take a vacation and come back, the tractor will be out of the ditch. So
XYZ.
Oh, right? Oh, my God.
Oh, these are such good, actionable things. So
definitely.
Oh, thank you so much for this. I'm going to keep a stack of these in my office too and just give them to people because they're so helpful. And they, that group clearly just nailed the feelings of what is happening between relationships.
They were amazing. It's amazing. This is like, 25? I don't even know how many years old that list is now. 25 or maybe 30 years old. Yeah.
But all these things still apply. That's the thing. Like, this is infertility has not gone away. It's even more common now than it used to be. And we still need to be having these conversations. So thank you. And if you're listening to this, please share it with anyone that could benefit, because this is what we need to support each other through all this. Thanks so much, Suzi.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Whole Pineapple Podcast. We hope it was helpful.
If you know someone who could benefit from hearing the podcast, we hope you'll share it with them.
And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review The Whole Pineapple on your favorite podcast app. Every rating and review makes us easier to find.
This podcast is sponsored by Seattle Reproductive Medicine and is produced by Audiotocracy Podcast Production. We'll see you next time. Have a delicious week.